As Jeff Rice's family tries to come to grips with his death, there are so many disturbing questions tonight. With us tonight for a Showbiz Tonight exclusive, two friends of Jeff who worked with him. Joshua Gates is the host and co-executive producer of Destination Truth on Sci-Fi, and Liz Bronstein is the executive producer of the terrific show Whale Wars on Animal Planet. I want to thank you both for being here, and my condolences on the loss of your friend and colleague. I know it must be such a tough time.
Yeah, it really is. It's a very difficult story to accept.
And let me start with you, Liz. I know the details surrounding Jeff's death right now are pretty sketchy. There are reports of an attempted shakedown and that he may have been poisoned. And then today, we saw a headline in Uganda's main newspaper where they quote police there as saying that Jeff died of a suspected cocaine overdose. Does any of that make sense to you? Do you know anything more?
That doesn't make any sense to me. The Jeff Rice I knew was incredibly straight-laced, a family man, two beautiful daughters. I've known Jeff for 4 years. I've never known him to take any drugs at all. So that cocaine story just seems completely false.
It does seem baffling given all the other information that has been coming in, but as I said, it is all still pretty sketchy at this point. Joshua, what about you? Are you giving that report that Jeff may have died from a cocaine overdose any credence at all?
Look, I think it's important to exercise a little bit of caution right now. My understanding is that we are just now seeing independent outside journalists arriving in Kampala to verify the story. There are a lot of conflicting reports coming out of the region about the story. It doesn't square off at all with the Jeff Rice that I knew, not by a mile. But I think that there are a lot of conflicting facts in this case that are going to take some time to sort out.
Is there anything more you're able to tell us tonight about what you have learned?
No. I mean, look, as you said in the introductory piece, Jeff Rice was a facilitator. We would call him a fixer. And, fixers are really the backbone of overseas productions, whether it's a documentary, a reality show, or an overseas film. And these are people who have incredibly difficult, demanding jobs. They travel often alone or in very small groups, sometimes to challenging regions, and they have an enormous responsibility to smooth the road for these big productions that come in behind them. I've worked in almost 100 countries. I've never met anyone better at fixing than Jeff Rice. This guy was a real maverick. He was confident, and he was cautious, and he was... as Liz said, he was a straight-laced guy. He was very good at what he did. I've never known him to get into a situation where he was in trouble. He was great at getting out of those kind of situations. So it's a surprising news to me, obviously.
Yeah, obviously it takes a very special individual to do what he does, work in some very difficult places. I imagine you have to have terrific instincts and a pretty thick skin to have to deal with some of the things you encounter. Liz, can you give us a sense of how dangerous this work is, especially on these types of reality shows that you work on, like Whale Wars?
Well, the work that Jeff did on Whale Wars, I wouldn't say was as dangerous probably as the work that he does on Destination Truth. But I do know that Jeff was just so professional and so good and so creative at what he did. I remember a story he told me once. He was working in a small African nation, and he needed to get a film permit in order to shoot there for the show he was employed by, and none of the ministers of the country were in the same place at the same time, and he needed all the ministers to sign off on this film permit. And he was so charming and creative that he rented a van and drove around the village and got each minister and talked him into coming into the van, and drove the van to the ministry and had them all come into the ministry and sign off on the film permit. And, and they just thought it was hilarious. So, it's part, pure courage and also part creativity and thinking on your feet. And, Jeff was the best at that.
Yeah, and hearing a story like that, it's no wonder that he was called the fixer, Joshua. Did he ever worry, though, about being in danger as good as he was, to your knowledge?
I think everybody who works in developing nations in the sort of work that Jeff did worries about that. I think a real testament, though, to his confidence is that Jeff fixed all over the continent. He fixed for Destination Truth in the deserts of Namibia. He fixed for us in the backcountry of Madagascar, in South Africa. And he was able to do that not necessarily because he had contacts in all of those places. He was able to do it because he was so good at bringing people together, at figuring out permissions and permits and how to get people to work together. And so I think that his confidence as a fixer superseded his fear about the work. He was devoted to his family. He talked about them often. And he really believed in Africa. And he was devoted to Africa as a place of great stories and great cultures. And I think his confidence is what drove him.
Well, it sounds like he will be remembered for being a very strong individual and somebody who really had a passion for what they did. And I really appreciate you both taking the time to give us a better sense of who Jeff Rice was and exactly what he did. And hopefully there will be some answers for the people who care about him. Joshua, Liz, thank you both so much.